those scenes also really freak me out with the editing because I don't like smiles in movies. I think it's just smiles in general.
Sure.
Now it's
you
all
hate
of that.
nobody.
Yeah,
smile
everyone
in
just
front
look
of Jamie.
unhappy because it's hard. Like that's what I'm expecting. Oh
Yes.
yeah, that looks like a weird like you look like I have a butthole mouth.
That's true.
Hello. Do you want to play a game?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
See dead people.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Here's Johnny.
The power of Christ compels you! The power of Christ compels you!
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome to Talking Horror with Jamie and Nikisha.
Hi, I'm Jamie.
And I'm Nikisha, and this is Talking Horror with Jamie,
And Nikisha.
where we share our love for spooky, spook, all the spooky things, and talk horror through the lens of human behavior. Welcome, everyone. Got my lenses today ready because we are astral flying through the skies. Talking about yes, astral projecting, which I'm so excited to just chat with you guys about that because it's a subject that is very interesting to me. I need to do a deep dive, but we'll get there when we get there. We are talking about the 2010 supernatural horror film Insidious.
Wee, wee, wee.
That's the perfect soundtrack to it because all it is.
Oh
is
no,
just
I should have done
strings.
tiptoe through the tulips.
Oh yes. That's like the creepiest song ever.
Not
But
the
funny
bop
at the
for
same
me.
time. Yes.
Sure.
Obsessed. That's in my notes too about that song. So we'll get into all that. But Insidious is directed by our one and only James Wan, who we stan on this podcast, and written by Leigh. I think we said this before
Lee.
because
Lee.
Okay. Leigh Whannell. And it stars also our faves, Patrick Wilson, Rose Byrne, and Barbara Hershey. This is the first installment in the chain and the third in the story's chronology. Chronology, because there's a prequel, which two prequels, which were Chapter 3 and The Last Key, which I forget that there were already that many Insidious movies. I feel like I've only watched the first 3. Maybe I watched The Last Key. I don't know. I have to go back. But
Well, we've been going back.
yeah,
We started. Well, Brian's never seen any of the sequels before,
Yeah.
and I've seen
okay.
all of them.
Okay.
So I'm revisiting. He's visiting the further for the first and repeated times.
the even further of the furthest.
even further
Yeah,
into
the furthest.
further.
Okay.
I'm also surprised that like in the description at the top that like Lin Shaye is not listed when like she essentially is the star of this franchise.
Yes. But truly, it's Wikipedia is like, no, the only important people are.
Yeah, I find that very funny.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to be getting into all things Insidious, maybe speaking on some things in the other parts of or the chain as a whole. So just be prepared for that. That might come up, but obviously heavy spoilers for this one. And Jamie, can you tell us about the trigger warnings?
Sure. There is a lot of paranormal activities. This is not paranormal activity, but there are paranormal activities that are taking place in this.
Yes.
Including there's some like psychic and astral projection, and I guess is astral projection like part of the paranormal activities? I don't think so. That I'm assuming that's its own thing. But if you don't like that, I'm telling you about it. That's my role. Memory suppression, that might be spooky, but there's a spooky place with with demons. So if you don't like demons, or other spooky undead folks, apparitions, do people get attacked in this movie? Oh yeah, he has that like fight with the not the demon. I mean, he doesn't fight with the demon, but like that other weird entity thing.
Yes.
The like malicious ghost.
Yeah, and then there's also the choking at the end.
Yeah, and then at the end there's death.
and then at the
And then at the end there's death. There's
Can't
a strangulation scene at the end that is disturbing.
Yes.
But I also believe once again that this film is PG-13, and so there aren't like noticeably that many insides on the outside. I've been trying to like take notice more on some of the things that we've been watching and covering, because I do feel like it makes a significant difference, and like just the appealability. I don't know if that's a word that I might have just made up, but to a larger audience by like not keeping in some like even scarier things, or like downplaying some of the things that they can do so that they can get as many people to watch their movie as possible.
Yeah, I guess that is a fair thing to say. Make sure it's PG-13. You're going to get a broader audience appeal. So I buy that.
I just double checked, and all of the Insidious movies, including the upcoming one, are PG-13.
Interesting.
I mean, it's some good spooks for PG-13, but I definitely would attribute that to how James Wan films his stuff.
Sure.
For sure.
Yeah. And like Lee Winnell takes it over in the third, in chapter 3, and I think that's his directorial debut.
Oh, okay. But we've had him as a writer before.
For Saw.
That's it.
They've worked together before.
Yes.
And then we're also going to be covering The Invisible Man, which Lee Winnell also did.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, great.
Yeah, he directed and wrote that. We just watched it preparing for our episode, so it's very on the brain.
Fresh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is a different film. Unrelated to everything we've been talking about.
In its entirety, a completely different film, but also a really good
Films
one.
on the brain.
Fantastic. Well, producer Brian, do you have some words before we dive right into the astral plane?
Yes. First of all, we're on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. You can find us there if you're not already watching us there. But also you can find us on social media at Talk Horror Pod. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Instagram. And, of course, you can find us on TikTok, where we have hit 15K followers. So thank you all. Very exciting.
5,
Next
10,
one.
15.
Next up is 20, so we'll try and get there. But
Woo-hoo.
yeah, very, very cool. I'm very.
Thanks for hanging out with us, TikTok.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just did my top 30, or I counted down all 30 movies that I liked, that I've seen this year, horror movies that have been released this year that I've seen, and I ranked them 30 through 1, so go check that out.
Wow, that's so many movies, and it's only the beginning of July, and there's so many more to go.
I know. Well, I think I only saw. I think I saw 35 last year, so cracking that one wide open.
Heck yeah.
You're just gonna have to keep setting the bar so high for yourself.
I know, that's the
going.
problem. I mean, when there's gonna come a point where like I can't keep up anymore, and I'll get burnt out and all of that. I mean, I enjoy them. Don't get me wrong, but it's still a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, at the very least, a lot of the major studio horror movie releases have been very good in general. So at least there's that. But one that I will shout out that I watched recently was Brooklyn 45 on Shudder. I loved it. It's about a group of friends who all served in World War II, and they get together in a Brooklyn brownstone in 1945 to help console their friend whose wife just killed herself, and he wants to do a seance with them to bring her back and whatnot, and then chaos ensues. So it's I would call it more of a drama with supernatural elements. It feels like a black box play, and it's trying to say a lot about who people are, what makes a good person, what makes a bad person. It's tying in a lot of like PTSD, war commentary, all of that stuff, bigotry, judging people. It's actually quite good. I would highly suggest it. Brooklyn 45 on Shudder.
Okay, Jamie, did you watch this with him, or you watched it by himself?
No, he watched it by himself. I forget what I was doing.
You were doing your D&D meeting.
Oh yeah, I have a D&D meeting.
You have a group?
I'm learning how to do D&D and starting.
I'm obsessed.
D&D. Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm talking to a guy on Hinge that is super into D&D.
I'll
That's
give you
cool.
all the info that you need to know.
Please let me know, because I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm super happy you're passionate about it, because it looks fun on Stranger Things.
Yeah.
So I thumbs
It's
it up,
true.
you know?
Also-
They do make it look really fun.
We watched the Dungeons and Dragons movie finally,
Oh,
and it
yeah.
was very good.
Oh, okay. I love that. Do you know what also was, I don't know if I already talked about this, but was surprisingly good was the Super Mario movie. I really had a good time. And y'all can,
yeah.
or
We haven't
people
watched
out
it
there,
yet.
y'all can hate me for it, but I loved it.
No, I
Oh,
heard
yeah,
that
we
it was
haven't
a
watched
really
it.
good time.
Yeah.
And then, that's we could watch that. We're also rewatching all the Mission Impossible movies.
Oh.
So we're through 2 so far. We just finished 2.
How many are there?
There's about to be 7.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's Mission Impossible, Mission Impossible 2, Mission Impossible 3, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, Mission Impossible Rogue Nation, Mission Impossible Fallout, and then Dead Reckoning Part 1 this year, and then next year is Dead Reckoning Part 2.
And it's all Tom Cruise doing all his stunts and all the things.
All his...
Every one of them is excellent except for 2. Like, actually. Like,
Oh, okay.
1 is like a nostalgia fest. We just watched it. It was like, wow, 1996.
Yes.
And then 3, 4, 5, and 6 are really good. 6, I would like 4, 5, and 6 are exceptional.
Okay.
Like
Is it
those-
exceptional because of the... sorry to cut you off, but is it exceptional because of the stunts or the storyline? Or
I would
both?
say all of the above, but the stunts, you come for the stunts, you stay for like, oh, like this is fun to watch. Like it's a very fun time, and then you can shut your brain off and like listen, say what you want about Tom Cruise, like outside of like movies, but like he is dedicated to the art of movie spectacle, and like you get those in those movies, and like you have to see them in theaters when they come out. Like it really is worth it. It's not like just BS. Like those movies like sing in movie theaters.
Oh, I love that. It's just you talking about that on a completely different plane of chains makes me want to watch the Fast and Furious.
Oh sure.
Ooh, that's a fun time.
Yeah.
Just cause, yeah. I feel like that would be a fun time. Just
We
start
did that
from
during the
beginning and go.
pandemic. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, should we get into Insidious? I think that's why the people are here listening
Probably.
to us.
Oh, wait. There's one other thing that I want to shout out that's
Yes.
not a movie or anything, but I thought of it because of the name of it. If you are a fan of Olivia Rodrigo, she released a new single called Vampire, and it is a bop. And it's stuck in my head, and it's so good. So just throwing that out there. I feel like it's, on theme just enough.
It is, absolutely.
So I had to let the people know.
That's great. We'll be playing Vampire at the end of this episode. Brian will be putting it in the episode. Brian's
Okay.
looking like, nah.
Yeah, I'll put a clip of it in at the end, like when we're saying goodbye.
Okay, beauty. The
right.
people need to know.
The people
Yeah.
need to know.
Alrighty, well, let's get a plot summary of Insidious. Who's gonna do it? 2-minute plot summary.
What's the plot?
I haven't done one in a while. I just haven't said anything, so I feel guilty.
Do it to it.
All right.
What if I was like, I haven't done one, but I'm not gonna do it?
And I'm also not gonna do this one.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, sorry. No.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
ready to go into the further.
2 minutes
the
on the further clock, and go.
Okay, so we have a married couple and family that just moved into their new house, 3 kids, and then the parents, Josh and Renee. The middle son goes into the attic of the new home and sees something spooky and falls and hits his head, and then the next day he's in a coma. But they go to the hospital and they have no idea why he's in a coma. There's nothing medically wrong with him, so they take him back home. And then weird, spooky things start to happen. And Renee thinks that it's, she doesn't know what it is, but she's like, we have to move. So they move again, and the spooky stuff continues. So then Renee starts to think it might be something supernatural. Josh's mom comes and calls Elise, who is a psychic, and she helps them learn that the house isn't haunted. Your son is. Da-na-na! Because he can project, and he's been astral projecting his consciousness into the further, which is like purgatory, where there's spirits there that are dead, but also other spookier spirits. And essentially his body is like an empty vessel without his soul in it, because the demon captured him, and now all of these ghosts are trying to get into his body, and that's all the spooky stuff. They do a seance. They learn that Josh also used to astral project, but they hid his talents because he was being like something spooky was coming after him. So they teach him how to do it again. He goes into the further. He saves his son. He wakes up. His son is back. And then he all of a sudden gets really angry at Elise for taking his photo. And then he chokes her and she dies. And then Renee sees the photo that she took and gasps. And that's the end.
You have 5 seconds left. Anything else you'd like to add?
Tiptoe through the tulips.
And that's the plot.
Perfect.
Perfect.
How was that? Did I do okay?
You did amazing,
Yeah.
Jamie. That was amazing. Yes.
Fantastic.
Ooh.
All right, so let's get into our first segment, which is likes and gripes.
And now our likes and gripes.
Now, Brian, would you like to start this and tell us how you first watched this movie, your association with this movie?
Yeah, I had only seen Insidious. I had never seen any of the other movies, so this was my let's call this my 2.5 time watch. Like 1 point. I'd seen it once, and I'd never seen it. I'd only seen it all the way through once. I had seen like clips or portions of it or whatever in other parts. So this was only my second time actually watching it all the way through. And then Jamie and I watched Insidious Part 2 like right after it. So which I don't like as much as this one. I still have not seen 3 and 5. Excuse me, 3 or 4 and 5. It hasn't come out yet when we're recording this. But yes. I definitely want to watch 3 and 4. But we wanted to get 1 and 2 in because those are the 2 with Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne. But I have a lot of things. I really like this movie a lot. I think that this movie is very scary and very silly, and I never remembered it being silly, but now that we've watched and broken down a lot of James Wan movies, both on the podcast and just like personally, the three of us talking about like Dead Silence and stuff like that, this movie is a perfect James Wan movie. And I mean that because like it's genuinely scary, like not fake scary, like it's actually scary. But in the same vein, the same things that are scary are so wildly silly and stupid. And like, I feel like that's exactly what Malignant is. But this movie it's better than Malignant. But like, this movie is kind of leans more into the taking it seriously, where Malignant kind of like knows that it's like a little silly. And I think that's why I think of this movie or The Conjuring. The Conjuring's not as silly. But this one, like, this one definitely has like this feels like James Wan in some way. I just get it.
This feels like him fleshing out those things that you see in later films, like The Conjuring. This is. I feel like, sorry to like cut you off, but like
go for it.
I feel like it is him, but it's him like really, sinking his teeth into the James Wan-isms, if you will, that we see in his later films. He's like testing it all out, and I feel like it's going well.
Yeah, he knocks it out of the park with all this, and so let me start with my likes for this movie. I love the opening and the credits. I think that both of those like were really effective, like with him as a kid, and then the woman in the the old woman seeing that, and then you get that credit sequence of the house, and I think that so what I did was we watched this movie because I think the true brilliance of this movie is that it really makes you think it's a haunted house movie. The credits have the opening. The credits are all the house shots, and then you have the opening, and then all the books falling off the shelf. It's setting up everything you know to be a haunted house movie, and then it subverts your expectations. The twist doesn't come until like 50 minutes into this movie. The twist that the son is haunted and not the house. So after we watched this, I watched the original trailer for Insidious to see if they spoil it. And they do! The trailer for Insidious is like, the house isn't haunted, your son is. And I'm like, what? If I went into... What a bummer. That's like the best part of this movie. The fact that like he's subverting your expectations, and then all of a sudden it's not a haunted house movie. They move 3 times in this excuse me, twice in this movie. Like, I just think that's amazing. I like how this movie just jumps right in. I like the pacing of this movie. I think that he uses noises within the house really well, in terms of like the fan acting as a heartbeat as she's in the room and all of that. I think that's really good. All the jump scares in this are so spectacularly executed. And I'm not even talking about like the main jump scare where the mother sees the monster behind his head. Like, we all know that one. But just every jump scare, even the silly ones with the little kid running around the house. Like, that's a perfect example of being silly and being scary at the same time.
Yes.
Wonderful. The melodramatic music in their fight about Dalton is wild and wonderful. The gas masks look amazing. Like, what there's so many weird things in this movie that like don't like what who cares? Like, a lot of those feel like very 80s, like in terms of like the gas masks while doing the the
investigation.
All of that stuff. Which he
Definitely
doubled down.
Conjuring.
I was gonna say he doubled down. He doubles down on it in The Conjuring.
Yes.
I like that ignores things like he was taught. I love. No, I that was my note, but I get it.
I could tell.
He loves things. I love that he ignores things like the Patrick Wilson character ignores the problems in real life, like what his son is going through, what his wife is going through. He can't connect with them. He stays at school late and is falling asleep at his desk. He ignores all of the things, but that's what he was taught, because he was taught to not take pictures. He was taught to forget about certain things. Literally, he was brought up in an environment that taught him to forget things and totally sensitize himself to certain things, and like and I think that's very interesting. That carries into his adulthood, because that's a huge part of his character in this movie. And part of his change is that he actually finds his power again and goes into the further. He does it for his family, for his son. The final act still feels like a haunted house movie in the further, which I think is really cool, because you've already set your expectations for a haunted house movie. There's a twist. It's not, but it still feels like a haunted house movie in the end, which I appreciated. The sleep acting by everyone, wonderful. The push acting is outrageous.
Oh yeah.
So much pushing.
So much.
Also, like, the silliness of the demon monster, it's silly.
Yes.
Like, but I love it, but it's scary.
Very silly.
The tiptoe through the tulips is silly, but it's a lot of silly things executed in a very scary manner. Okay, so here are my gripes. They never get into why they moved the first time, because they have the conversation when they're sleeping, and right before they're going to sleep in bed, the adults, and they're talking about how it'll be better this time, or like something had happened, and I don't know what it was that it made them move. obviously they in the story they have to move to set it up to feel like a haunted house movie, but like there's a reason that they moved and they never explain it, which I bothered me because I think that would have said a lot about their relationship. I did not like the slow motion in this movie. There are moments like the slow motion on the bloody hand or when she's walking around the house. There are like weird moments of slow motion that feel very medical emergencies reenactment. Mm-hmm. You know those like show, you know, like the TLC like medical emergencies, and someone's telling their story and they're reenacting it like while they tell that.
And it's all in slow motion.
It's
Yep,
all
absolutely.
in slow. That's what it felt like, and
Yep.
I didn't like that.
What is this show that you used to watch? Medical Emergency?
Yeah, there are shows like medical emergencies
Like
or
on
like
TLC or something.
Yeah, or like you'll never
Never
believe
heard of
this.
that.
Like you can't. Like it's crazy that this happened to me. Like those type of things where they're like, I was kidnapped and I escaped, and then they like go through all the stuff. I like that it's. I didn't believe that he would just then notice all of the pictures his son was drawing, like after
at
he
the last minute. Mhm.
like you like your son is drawing like dark demons, like red doors, and these are the things that were being described to you by him, and like by no like I guess they didn't question it, and then when they got the context from Elise, it like popped out. I get that, but like still a little not believable in some ways.
Bad dad alert?
Well, that's my question for you all. Is he an asshole? Is he a dick? Is he a bad husband? Is he a bad, friend? Is he a bad father? Like I want to talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
And then quotes. I don't like when he walks around at night. Spectacular moment in this movie. Well, the universe picked a fight with the wrong chick. I like when the
nurse.
mother-in-law. Well, I like that the mother-in-law. The nurse said that. Yes. The nurse said that. That was wild. But I that reminded me of is I like the relationship between the mother-in-law and her. Like she was saying, like you've been thrown a lot of BS. Like you're doing a great job or whatever she says there. Like when they're unpacking the second house. But I think this movie is great. I think this is one of like. This might be a top 10 horror movie for me. Maybe top 20, but it's just scary and silly. But like we talked about, it's not like campy silly. It's like subtextually, like silly. But they lean into the scares more. Anyway, that's my Insidious wrap up. Likes and gripes for me.
Yes. No, I'll piggyback off of that, Brian, just with the nurse line, because I was like, I don't think I like how she delivered that line.
Yeah.
And then I was like, is that just a weird thing to say, or is it how she said it? And then like I was just for a good 10 seconds trying to go back and forth of like how that was delivered and how I felt about it. But my likes and gripes are all over the place, which is nothing new, but I'm going to go through it.
Yeah.
I will piggyback. I also loved the title card, and add on, I think that his use of music and strings in this is adds so much to the intensity and to the anticipation of everything that is happening. And I think it just adds so much to all the jump scares, all the high-pitched strings. So I really love that. I did not like the long intro, which Brian was saying that he enjoyed the shots of all of the house. But after a while, I was like, this is going on for a little too long for my attention span. I want to get to the meat, to the heart, to the blood and guts of all the things. You know, that's what I'm here for.
Fair. Totally.
One thing that I did have to go back and rewind, and y'all tell me if you saw this right off the bat, is the body in the baby room behind the little like curtain thing.
Oh, the sheer curtain thing?
Yes. Yeah. I just got the, loud music and it's a jump scare, here it is. And I was like, wait, I didn't see anything. I didn't see the body. And so I had to rewind.
Oh, I saw it. That made me jump
it.
out of my skin.
Did I see that one? There was one where I had to ask you to rewind it.
No,
I didn't see it.
We rewound when she's walking to the house and the little kid is in the corner of the washing machine room.
Is that the first one or the second one?
No, that's in the. I don't remember.
That's the second one. But I think I had you rewind something in the first one, and it might have been that one.
Wait, is the second one when there's no little kid in this one running around?
There is a little kid running around this one because he hides into the room and she like sees the shoes, and so she like swipes it away, and then he like jumps out of another part. There's a little kid in this one.
Is there
But
a
it's not a
moment
little
where
kid,
she's
it's an adult man.
Yeah, is there one where she's outside looking in and seeing the kid like dancing with the record player?
There is a record player in this one, yeah, and she has her records going. It changes to the Tiptoe song while she's outside.
I guess it is this
she
one.
turns
Now
around.
Yeah. So in the first one,
Yes.
right? So in the first one, when she's walking through the house, like doing whatever, and she walks through kind of like the
always
laundry
doing
room.
laundry.
I know.
Always.
There's the little kid in the corner there, just facing the wall, and I jumped, and Jamie was like, "What happened?" And I rewound it, and she saw it. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, there was a couple of those where I was like, wait, let me go back and see. Or when it's building up the tension to it, I'm trying to look in all the different places to see if I can catch it, which I like doing. I mean, it's like, you know, an activity. Like, where's the ghost going to be? I want to see. I want to participate in the thing. So I enjoy how those are shot. I loved seeing the little Saw doll on the chalkboard in the classroom.
Yeah.
Yes. Very, very cute. And I really
Billy?
enjoyed... Say it again.
I think the Saw puppet's name is Billy.
Puppet.
Really?
Yeah, I'll look at while
I
you
don't remember why.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. I never knew that he had a name. The jump scare I did enjoy too was, or the shot. It wasn't a jump scare, but the shot of the tall man walking outside back and forth by the window, and then suddenly he's inside the house walking back and forth. I thought that was a beautiful shot. Very creepy, very scary. Love that they actually moved out of the house. It was a big plus in my horror movie notebook. Although I kept thinking to myself, on the practical financial side, how taxing that probably would have been. You just moved into a house, and now you just moved into another one.
I know.
What is your mortgage?
Well, if you notice, they only rented the second one. The sign said like for lease. So they probably, if we're gonna talk Insidious real estate, they probably bought the first one and then like maybe couldn't sell it fast enough, but they need to get out of there. So they only leased the second house because in the shot that sets up that house that they're moving in, the establishing shot, the sign on the outside says leased or something like that. Yeah.
Great. I'm believable. I'll take that. But I literally was thinking to myself, you only have one source of income. She left her job to do music, and you are a teacher. So
I mean, how'd they afford that second house and just a teacher's salary? I don't know.
Exactly.
In that neighborhood, for sure.
Right.
And that has been Insidious real estate.
Real estate. The song Tiptoe, great. The slow zoom ins, and the first person point of view shots, great always. All of the great jump scares that Brian already talked about, I agree with. I love that the basis of this is that the son is haunted, and that it is in a haunted house, but that it is following them. It was just kind of more of a believable story to how they were reacting to everything that was happening. I also did like that sometimes the wife could see the ghosts, but then I was like, well, why is she seeing the ghosts? Is it just because she's in the house more? I guess so, because Patrick Wilson is really not there. What are you gonna say, Brian?
Oh, I mean, I also think that, he's not as open to it because he's erased that part of his mind. I also agree with you. I think she's in the house more. She's looking for it. He may just not see them in the way that she kind of walked through the boy looking in the corner. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. I don't know, but like, that's definitely an interesting point.
Yeah, and you've already mentioned this, Brian, and we'll get into this like in brains. I can talk, but I definitely want to talk about Patrick Wilson as a father, as a husband, because the fact that he said, "Oh, I just brought these paranormal people just to ease your mind," like I didn't want it to take it this far. And it's like, okay, well, did you believe her? Did you not believe her? Like, what are your intentions in doing this? So we'll get into all of that. Also, y'all, when one of the paranormal guys were writing down like what Dalton was saying, I was just thinking, why are you writing so big and wasting all that paper?
I know. I thought the same thing. I was like, I mean, this is like, but like, if you had college line, like notebook, like you could have saved so much paper.
So much paper.
I get you're doing it fast because you have the gas masks on and you're going quickly, but like, and he doesn't even, but the other thing is, he doesn't double side it.
He doesn't.
No.
He just skips to the next page.
Yeah.
I hate it.
I know, me too.
But the sequence of Dalton getting out of bed was gorgeous, and like Brian said, all of the pushing and pulling. One of my biggest gripes was that I did not like how you could see so clearly the woman in black in the pictures of younger Patrick Wilson.
Oh,
To
interesting.
me, and the reason I didn't like it is because I think that it kind of diminishes like the scariness of it all, because it's one thing to like catch a photo and you see like the little shadows and I feel the same way about the close-ups with the actual red-faced demon, which, Brian, to your point about it being silly, because I felt like it was silly. I would have much better enjoyed when we first saw the demon and he was just in a shadow and you could kind of like barely see his face.
Sure.
And even in the big jump scare when we see him behind Patrick Wilson, like I didn't mind that and seeing that clarity, but there's something about not seeing something fully that makes it even scarier. And so for me, not seeing the woman so clearly in the pictures and seeing the demon so clearly, I think took me out of it.
So I have a question for you, Nikisha, on that. In the third act, when the black and red demon is up in the little like sewing area sewing, and you see a lot of his face and like looking through the glass, like does that undercut the scariness and the tension for you because it seems so silly at the end, or like do you still buy into it?
I would say both, because the ending wasn't really about the demon. It was more about Patrick Wilson overcoming like the woman, and then like the woman overcoming him and killing Elise. So if it was like a showdown at the end with which we don't get in this, with the demon and Patrick Wilson, then I would say that other the seeing the face would kind of undercut the showdown at the end if there was one, but there wasn't. So seeing him is like, okay, I can still buy into the end of it, but because we don't see the demon a lot at the end, then why show him so much, like, you know, sharpening his nails and doing all that stuff? Because I feel like if we
and
kind of
sewing, he's practicing to be on RuPaul's Drag Race.
I'm dead.
On RuPaul's Drag Race, you have to be able to sew.
You better know how to sew.
You have to know.
You have to know how to sew.
You're not going to get away with that hot glue gun anymore.
No. And so the black and red demon is just practicing for the challenge that he knows he's going to get on All Stars, where he's got to put together his own outfit.
He's already on All Stars. He's already won. He's already won the first
Yes.
time.
Yes.
Bypasses the regular season.
Yeah, he honestly,
he's a demon.
he's a demon. He's getting on to RuPaul's. He's getting on to All Stars.
Like he is the definition of serving cunt. Is the demon?
Yeah, you better work, Insidious.
What is it? Creativity, uniqueness, nerve, and talent.
Yeah.
we see we see all of it.
You know, we've watched every season of RuPaul's Drag Race. Well, every
Obsessed.
U.S. season at least. We watched a couple of the other ones, but until last season, I never put it together what CUNT, like what creative uniqueness, nerve, and talent. I never put it together that's what it was. And then one day it just like clicked, and I turned to Jamie and was like, "Holy shit! Like, am I the idiot here?" And she was like, "Yes."
The last to know. It's okay, but you got it. Point being, this was parlor talk, and you have to sew.
Yeah.
Come sit have a drink. It's parlor talk.
I am obsessed. I don't think I have anything else. That was my only big gripe. I forgot about the cliffhanger ending, and I loved it. I think it's a great ending to start the next movie. And
You've seen 2, right?
Yeah, I don't remember it all, but I have seen it. I've seen the first 3 for sure. But yeah, we'll go into all the other stuff that I was talking about with Jamie and Brains. But Jamie, likes and gripes.
Yeah, I agree with the both of you. I really enjoyed this movie. It's very interesting, like having watched most of James Wan's catalog and then like going back to the beginning of some of these like things that have blown up. One of his like many franchises. I like the balance of the humor and the comedy with Specs and Tucker. I enjoy them. Yes, I had to look. Specs, who is also played by Lee Winnell, so he's like in his own in the movie. But I like comedic elements in my horror movies. Like this isn't a horror comedy, maybe. I don't know. Rewatching it again, I have some thoughts, but like I like the elements of like cutting the horror. Like I'm a fan of that. My heart needs like a few moments just to recalibrate and not feel like it's going to fall out of my chest. Yeah, so I do really appreciate with like the intense jump scares that they're giving the audience a breather. I like that. You know, there's other movies that we've seen where it's just like nonstop discomfort and horror and chaos, and it's like I feel like I'm having palpitations. So like, and that could be enjoyable for its own thing, but like I do like the way that they split it in this. I'm trying to think of like something that hasn't already been said. I also like the ending of this. I like, so what I was saying before, I'm glad that we rewatched this, seeing other things like Dead Silence and like Malignant, because it does give me this new appreciation for Insidious and like what was he trying to achieve with this film. Like there are things that are pretty outrageous and like laugh out loud funny, and I don't mean the intentional scenes with Specs and Tucker, but like, you know, with the ghosts and with the demon that like I think I cackled, and I was like this feels like a very different viewing from like the first time that I saw this. I can't even remember how many times I've seen this movie now, but like it felt very significantly different with that particular lens on of like, oh, this like not only are we getting early James Wan, but like this is him really flexing the like giallo vibes, like it's just like very over the top and outrageous with like random, very grounded things. And it kind of feels split between the two, because then you get The Conjuring, where it is more like, you know, grounded horror, if you will. And like just leaning into like, this is a haunted house movie and that's what it is, versus like, I feel like then he splits kind of like, it's either that or that. It's either the Conjuring universe or it's Dead Silence, Malignant, all of those. And this kind of feels like it's threading the needle between both and just trying to figure out like, you know, which thing do I like more, or like which thing do I want to kind of like figure out is the overall tone of this. I don't think this film has a tone problem, but I can kind of just see it like, you know, weaving back and forth between these two versions of like horror. So I found that very interesting. And still enjoyable, because it's cool to see him like figure certain things out and then implement them in other movies that like we also really enjoy.
Yeah, this viewing experience was very layered and complex, in a good way, and it was very satisfying because I think the first time I had seen it like I didn't really know James Wan, who he is. Like I just enjoyed the movie for what it was. But with the more context in terms of like Jamie said, it really was a very complex, enjoyably, satisfyingly complex viewing experience.
Yeah.
But no, and I like, you know, there's definitely this same like tropes that we get. I feel now I've become like the trope person of like, here's the tropes that I've identified in this film, and like, do we like them or not? But like, he does put his spin on it, you know, like we get the seance, but we get the seance where like no one else can hear what she's saying, and she's wearing a gas mask with a tube, and you hear like weird like and like frantic writhing happening. So like, it's pretty absurd, but it is still very like disconcerting and spooky. And I know you talked about the scene already, but like I just like how it's like this weird version of something we've already gotten, but not quite. We also see the spooky ghosts, but like they're also weird, and like they're not always. Before he goes into the further, they are threatening and like attacking people. I forgot that same ghost who's pacing like attacks Josh in the seance. So like there's other moments where like there are these fights and things that are happening, but when he goes into the further, like a lot of times nothing is happening. Like he's walking through and the ghosts are just like there, static and not moving. And like he's, you know, but they all, those scenes also really freak me out with the editing, because I don't like smiles in movies. I think it's just smiles in general. Now it's you know, all
hate
of that.
Nobody smile
everyone
in
just
front
look
of Jamie.
unhappy because it's hard. Like that's what I'm expecting. Oh yeah, that looks like a weird like, you look like I have a butthole mouth.
That's true.
Yeah, that Tucker is like too weird.
He's smoldering, like
yes,
like the Rock.
You're pulling
Smolder.
a Zoolander on us. But like, yeah, it's like the ghosts aren't like chasing him necessarily. There is the scene where they're all like kind of swarming them, but like when he first gets there, it's still just something weird and different that like I don't really remember seeing in other horror movies where the ghosts are just like around and he's like weaving and bobbing in between them, and they're not necessarily like drawn to his son's body. They're just like chilling in the house, like I don't know, like pretending to iron clothes and like sit around someone ironing clothes, and then the other one is sitting at the dining table with the gun, and then she shoots them in the head, and then they all smile on the stairs. Like it's so weird.
Yeah.
But it's very unsettling, and I don't like it, and like that stands out. It's just like, yeah, all of these things that already exist, but still like taking it a step further, just doing something really weird with it. I feel like those are all what make this film enjoyable, because it's not just the same like spooky ghost house movie that we've gotten time and time again. So those are pretty much my likes. I don't have too many gripes with this. Maybe I don't. We'll get into this with brains, but like I don't like Josh Lambert. I don't like this character.
Can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, we can go right into it if you'd like, because that's really my only gripe.
Okay, well, let's get into our next segment, Brains. Let me just say, this ain't Ed and Lorraine, okay? This couple.
No.
Whew. I kept thinking, I'm like, okay, I need to know what both of you guys think just about their dynamic and about Josh as a human being. So my first question, and a lot of these kind of bleed into each other or will be kind of, added questions to a general question, general gist. But I want to talk about this particular family dynamic, right? And the roles that the parents play in this dynamic, because we have the husband who is working, but the wife like is not working because she wants to work on her music, but she also carries the burden of, not burden, but she also has to like take care of the kids or like take them to school or like upkeep the house or whatever, when initially she stopped working because she wanted to, pursue her music. So I just want to talk or ask Jamie, is this couple's dynamic, do you think that it's healthy? And if not, what would you change about it and how they operate?
Yeah. Healthy is a harder question. I think that like they have a lot of communication issues. And also, like, as Brian pointed out earlier, like, Josh escapes all of the conflict seemingly in his life.
Yes.
Whether that's like, you know, a big part of that is because he escaped a major conflict in his childhood, and like that's not his fault. Like that's, you know, something was happening to him, and then the adults like made that decision for him without his consent, like seemingly to keep him safe. And then does that like kind of lend itself to this theme in his life of like always escaping, you know, moments of tension. But like he is dishonest and like is not around, and especially in a moment like in several moments of major life transition. Like they just moved. She seemingly like just left her job and has transitioned to like a full-time stay-at-home mom. And then their son, you know, goes through this horrible accident. And so like now she's also his primary caretaker. Like when the nurse comes to the home and like is teaching her how to do the feeding tube and all of this stuff. Like now she's to learn how to take care of her son who's in a coma. And this fool is like staying late, sleeping at his like weird teacher job. Which, like, is he a college professor? I don't actually know what his...
No,
he's in that
high
huge...
school.
Is high school? Okay.
That room was not a high school classroom. I was like, I don't know what fancy school he's teaching at, but that's definitely a college classroom.
Yeah. I just to add or piggyback, because one of my questions was talking about how they both deal with Dalton in different ways, especially when she makes the quote at the end, like, you're not here dealing with this with me. So how would you describe the way they are initially handling this situation? Not when they both are on the same page, but is there a term, like, is he being avoidant? Like, is she being overly anxious? Like, and how would you have approached that if you came into their lives at that moment of tension? How would you speak to them about how they're reacting to this particular situation?
Yeah, I mean, caveat is like I am not a couples therapist. Like that is like a nuanced approach that I don't have that skill set. But like, observing them in this movie, like, yeah, he's totally avoidant. I don't think that she's overly sensitive. I think that she is like very appropriately reacting to like not only the horror of like the medical diagnosis and dealing with that, but then the actual like additional horror of the hauntings and stuff. Like, I don't think that she's overreacting at all. I think he's like totally disconnected, and but it's hard to say, like, how would you react in a situation where like your child is going through something unfathomable, especially when there aren't any answers and like there is nothing you can do? Like, how do you deal with I also don't have children, so like I can't speak to like how would I act in that situation, but like I'm sure that I probably would have a really hard time just like acknowledging that that's my reality, and like just all of that. So like I have some empathy that it's just such a challenging situation that he finds himself in, but at the same time he's just not communicating any of that to his partner, and that's where I feel like that's the problem. If he was saying like, I just can't do this, like this is just so hard, I don't know what to do, like he's just not saying anything. He's so shut down and closed off, and like I think that's part of the problem. And so like she's more vulnerable for a variety of reasons because she is communicating that stuff. She's being upfront and open with him, but like she's also more vulnerable in the house by herself. So like as a whole, she's just like a very vulnerable character that then also sees all of this stuff that's happening and is experiencing it. I think partially as a result of that vulnerability, and like he is just so closed off that like I think that's why it takes him so long to see it. Like, he has the experience where he goes downstairs when the alarm goes off and the door is open, and he's just like, what with the bat.
Right. Yes.
But like, but then his wife gets attacked upstairs in like that same scene.
That same night,
yeah, like he doesn't see anything, but she does. And I feel like that's also just speaking to like, you know, the levels of like openness that one of them is and one of them isn't.
Yeah. Okay. So to further this, kind of outside of the further, no pun intended. If you're talking or counseling someone who has avoidant behavior, I don't want to say like one way of handling things is better or worse, but if it is not serving them to be avoidant, how would you like counsel them in the way of how they can kind of manage or maneuver their avoidant behavior? I know you mentioned like in this scenario it was communication, like he needed to communicate more, but like isolated outside event, if someone is just naturally avoidant, like what would you say to them if it's not serving them in their life to be that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think like, you know, asking my favorite question, like, you know, is this helpful? Because it just, I think, helps unlock, you know, the idea of like, maybe there are things that you're getting out of avoiding. Maybe like him not having to deal with it, like I'm sure is a huge pro. But at the same time, it comes at the cost of like his relationship with his wife, his relationship with his other kids. And like, he's just not there. He's not there, and he's not spending time with his children who also aren't in comas.
Right.
So he's
Where
just
are
not
they?
present in. Oh yeah, I also totally forgot that there are 3 children in this film. I always thought there were 2. That poor other son, like I always totally forget about.
Who gets one of the better lines in the movie?
Yeah.
Which one?
So I just like forgot about him.
I don't like when he walks around at night.
Oh yes, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
But but yeah, like he's just not around. He's like fundamentally missing. Oh man, that one scene also with that same kid who I forgot about. Now I feel worse. Where he got the award, and the mom like picks up the award. And she's like, "Oh, you didn't tell us." And because like he can just read that like things are not good. Like that's actually a really telling scene, because like, I mean, I'm assuming, I think he's the oldest. Is he the oldest or is Dalton the oldest? I don't know which one is older.
I think Dalton is the oldest.
So he's like got super middle child syndrome, like times 1,000, where like not only is he already dealing with like being the middle child and what comes with that, but then like his older brother is in a coma, and like they're so, you know, it's all consuming that he can't even tell them about this award that he got. It's so sad.
That's very sad.
But also talk, and there's also that scene when he's rushing to work, and he's like, and he's like, oh, I have to stay late. I have like the parent teacher conferences or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he kind of like gets to play the hero to the kids, being like, I'll see you later. Like, and she just like kind of still stuck with them when like they're eating cereal out of like cups. You know what I mean? Like that was also a very telling scene. And I mean, I think casting Patrick Wilson as that character helps the movie because he's so likable, but the character like is just has no handle on certain things.
No.
So that's
so you like kind of let your guard down a little bit. You know, like he's just like a full on, like he is not being a good anything.
Yeah.
In
okay,
these
so
moments.
here's another question for the group. Do we feel like it was still nice, quote unquote, good of him to call in Elise, even though like he technically wasn't believing all of that stuff? Like, does he get points for that, or is it worse because he was like, well, I was just doing this to make you feel better anyway, sorry about it, we're not going through with it? Like, how do you feel?
So I think you can read that scene one of two ways. I think you can read the scene where like it's all making him wildly uncomfortable, because I think deep down in his gut he believes it all, and at the end when it gets serious, like let's move forward with this, I think that's him being more defensive than it is him just being like, no, I don't get me wrong. a part of why he did it was absolutely to appease her, so like no question. But I do think that if you I'm reading between the lines a little bit, because like I think that he's just being a little defensive there, because then when he sees the pictures, and I understand that the pictures in that moment need to happen, like Dalton's drawings on the wall, because he needs to see that, like, this is my son, this is very real. He's been drawing these things before we even heard that there was a red door and a dark black and red demon and all of that stuff. And he's like, oh, like, we have to do this. But there's also a world in which she saw those pictures and like has been faking all of this because she saw those pictures first. Like, that's not the case. But like that doesn't even enter his mind, because deep down inside, even though he's forgotten it, like he knows what this is like and what this is. So I think there's a defensive-ness to it, but don't get me wrong, I'm not defending him. I still think that he partially did it. No, did to appease her. No, I'm so sorry. No. But yeah, I think that's I think that Patrick Wilson plays that complicated scene really well, that it's a little bit gray as to why he's like because in the scene he's genuinely engaged in what they're saying, and then all of a sudden he gets defensive and it feels weird, but that's kind of how I see it a little bit.
Okay, Jamie, do you agree, disagree?
I think point score to Brian.
Oh my.
Okay, so are we gonna put him in like kind of the bad husband boyfriend category? Or is it just in between? Like, he was trying to hashtag do his best.
I think he was hashtag doing his best for what he could do. For what he could do. I mean, that doesn't make him a good husband, but I don't think he's an awful husband. What I needed to, because he's not Micah in Paranormal Activity or Mika.
He's like, I don't want these things.
Right. He's not.
I don't want these things in my house.
He's not like the boyfriend in The Watcher. He's not like these awful people who just like truly don't believe their spouses and then kind of like undercut them and whatnot, like, and make fun of them.
Yes. Was A-Train the one that was in The Watcher? Who was somebody's husband? And
A-Train was Smile, was the fiance in Smile. Yeah. Okay. Yes. He's not. I would. No, because it doesn't go away, and he ends up like learning his lesson, if you will, and going in to help save his son in some ways. But like, yeah, I think he's too much of a gray character. I also think, going back to one of my gripes, this movie did not need any more exposition, like, at all. I think its pacing is great. However, I think we would have a little bit more clarity if we learned a little bit more of their relationship, like why she left whatever she was doing to become a musician, or to like just go with her passion. How did she talk to him about that? How did they come to that decision? Why did they move? Did they move to a smaller house because she was trying to become a musician? Like go into her composing? Like, did they move cities because he got a new job teaching? Because I don't know, but like maybe they were having marital issues and they decided to move to like change the dynamic of things, or maybe they moved because they have a third kid and they needed the space, and you know, they
third kid who?
Yeah, I know. Maybe they had a third kid to try to help their marriage. Like, I don't know. These are all different things that I would have loved more context, because I think that would have helped me understand their relationship and him a lot more. But we don't get that, so we can't make those decisions. But I don't think that he's as bad as the ones we've seen, but I don't think he's the best one we've seen by far.
Yeah, because it's like, why? I think that would add more context too, because I don't know if y'all felt this way, but for me, when they were pulling the angle of him being at work more often, it kind of set up a like, oh, well, is he like being unfaithful? Like, is this a fidelity thing? Like, what is going on here? And is that going to come back in how their dynamic is in trying to deal with this situation? It doesn't ever come up that way, but yeah, I don't know. For me, I was just like,
I thought about that.
I don't know.
I thought about that too, Nikisha. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. Yeah, I'm done.
Oh, I thought that way too, because it feels like in another movie, she would say, "Hey, are you cheating on me again? That's why we moved." Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Like, but she never she never accuses him of that, and she never loses her trust in him as a partner. She loses her trust in him in terms of like how he's dealing with this and how she's leaving him out to dry. He's leaving her out to dry, but she never questions his faithfulness, if you will, to the relationship and to the family. And I feel like that would have been her first comment, to be like, is this happening again? Like, are you sleeping with your student again? Like some BS like that.
Oh,
but like, but it never, that never came up. You know what I mean? So I feel like if this was a movie that was trying to like bring in other things, like that would be the first thing that like she accuses him of.
Yeah. No, I agree, because that would have been perfect in that scene on the porch. And then it's like,
right.
Well, our son, this bloody handprint. And it's like, yeah, girl, we're with you. Fantastic. That's all I have for brains. Do we want to go into Rotten Tomatin?
Before we
Rotten
move into Rotten Tomatin, I do want to say that we watched Insidious 2 right after this. And Insidious 2 retcons a little bit of stuff in Insidious 1, like why the door was open when he goes down with the baseball bat, you know, a lot of that stuff. And it gets into like who the you know, that woman is in the second one. And I just wanted to say that I do not enjoy the second one as much as I enjoy this one. I think the second one loses a lot of momentum. It's investigating something that I kind of don't care about. It starts out strong and then like really goes downhill. It has yucky sleepaway camp vibes in some parts. Yeah, this one is I guess what I'm trying to say is I didn't need a second movie to explain what happened at the end of the first one. I was perfectly okay, like Nikisha said. Like, cool. Okay, he lost. Because quite frankly, like, he lost. He in the end, he gave his life for his family. But even though and he's also there and not there at the same time. But he made the choice to do it. So I think that actually works thematically with who Josh is throughout this. So I didn't necessarily, but like, also, James Wan was not on his A game in the second one. It's just like very blasé in my opinion. But
I can't wait to revisit.
Yeah. Anyway, cool. That's all. Sorry.
Fantastical.
That's all.
Well, yeah. Let's do Rotten Tomatin.
Rotten Tomatin.
It's the Rotten Tomatoes game.
All right. What do you think this has on Rotten Tomatoes? What percent? Jamie, let's start with you.
68.
All right, Nikisha.
68. Oh God. Okay.
Should I do more? Should I do
thinking,
less?
like,
I never know.
81. Maybe.
So this has a 66% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Woo!
Wow.
The audience score is lower at a 62%, which is wild.
What?
I feel like this is like typically like held with high regard.
Yeah. I don't know. Why it's in the 60s.
I don't think so. I think a lot of people aren't super crazy about it. I also wonder if people's opinions have gone down because The Conjuring came out and like that's so highly regarded that then this like gets pushed down.
That's fair.
Or should I say that this one is highly regarded for that one jump scare?
Yes. I think that is true.
All right, so here's the critics' consensus. Aside from a shaky final act, Insidious is a very scary and very fun haunted house thrill ride. I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll dig it.
Cool. And if you cared, since we talked about it, Insidious Chapter 2 has a 38% on Rotten Tomatoes. And it has a 57% audience score. And the critics' consensus for this is Insidious Chapter 2 is decidedly short on the tension and surprises that made its predecessor so chilling.
Insidious Chapter 2 or like Insidious Chapter Poo.
Whoa!
Oh snap!
But I'm glad we watched it before Red Door.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Should we do the 4 S's?
Yes.
Skull, scare, shakes, and suggestions. The Talking Horror's 4 S's.
Right. The 4 S's are skulls, scares, shakes, and suggestions. We are going to go through those. 1 through 10 is our rating for those. Skulls is how it handles mental health and human behavior. Scares is how scary was it. And then shakes is how much you're going to shake it off. What era is this for you? And then we'll talk about what suggestions. But Jamie, let's start with you. Skulls, scares, shakes.
Sure. For Skulls, I gave this a 5.
Nice.
What?
I said nice.
Oh, yeah. I gave it a 5. I feel like there are certain choices that like I don't think I would make in some situations. I mean, again, like I just feel like his avoidance is so extreme that like I'm surprised that she didn't like threaten to leave him kind of thing. And like
Also that.
yeah,
Yes.
I just feel like it would have come to more of a head. And then like other, like the same kind of spooky things, like why are you going there? Don't do that. Run away from the spooky. Like that always bugs me.
Yes.
However, for scares, I did give this a 5 because I do
Okay.
think that like again, some of the jump scares really do hit. They are memorable, especially the most memorable one behind him. Like that jump scare already bumps it up like 3 points, I feel like. Just that one alone. It stands out, like everybody knows that one. And I do think that like it has other really good spooky moments too.
Sure.
For shakes, I'm giving this a 4. Because I realized that there was a lot of stuff I like didn't remember about this film. Because I think there are things that blend in with maybe some of the other Insidious chain movies, as well as other James Wan movies that I'm like, oh no, like that effect is from this thing, like kind of thing.
Right.
So, so yeah, those are my 3 S's.
Cool. Nikisha.
Okay. Skulls, I gave this a 6, mostly because they moved out of the house the first time, and that's points in my book.
That's a
So,
great, that's excellent.
You did the do, so
You did
good for
the
you
do.
guys. Scares, I'm gonna give it a 4. Shakes, and I'm gonna give it a 5. It's something that is memorable, as in the James Wan cinematic universe. So, and higher up on the list than some of his other ones. So I'll give it a 5.
Wow. I did not expect both of you to rank so lowly.
Oh. Brian has 10s across the board.
No, I don't have 10s, but I have a 5 for skulls. I think that seems, because it never, like I said, never goes into like their backstory and history a little bit, but also they're making like silly choices in some parts. Scares, I gave this a 7. Like, what else could I ask for from something? Like, there's, you know what I mean? Like, there's the spooky, creepy tiptoe that like kind of lasts with you forever. Then there's the main jump scare. Then there's a lot of smaller jump scares and stuff like that. So we have that. Whoa, that was crazy.
I just got jump scared. You all saw it
Yeah,
live.
what
Oh my
happened?
god, that was thunder.
Thunder.
That really got me. God,
no.
thunderstorms are not for me.
And then shakes, I have this as an 8. Like, this is Insidious. I don't know. I think it's like, I prefer this over Sinister.
That's on my list. I have not watched it yet, and someone recommended that.
Oh,
again to
Nikisha.
watch.
Nikisha, we have some.
I know.
You have to watch.
You know what?
Sinister.
We have some open slots in August for episodes. We'll do Sinister for one of those. We have to do
Fantastic.
Sinister, yeah. But I prefer Insidious over Sinister. Sinister's great, but I prefer this over that. I feel like they're very similar in some ways.
Cute.
But yeah. And then my suggestion is Malignant.
Mine too. Well, one of mine.
Yeah.
Any of the James Wan things, you're gonna have a good
Sure.
time. What about you, Jamie?
I went a different route, so I'm excited that y'all went first. So I have two. The first one, if you kind of want some similar vibes to the like paranormal investigative stuff, a la Specs and Tucker, I would suggest Grave Encounters.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yes.
And then on the flip side, like the theme of like a parent doing whatever they can to save their child. This, for me, this isn't my favorite movie, but I know some folks who've seen it that love it. The Possession.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
Yes, it's a movie about a Dybbuk.
Oh,
You don't get too many horror movies about Dybbuk.
That's true, you don't.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Cool.
Fantastical. Well, I think that wraps up our episode of Insidious. You can follow us on all the social medias, the Instagrams, the Twitter, the TikToks. Help us get to 20K at
Please.
Talk Horror Pod. Pod at Talk Horror Pod. And Brian, where can they listen to us?
Sure, you can listen to us wherever you get podcasts, including Spotify, RIP Stitcher. Can't find us there no more.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and of course Apple Podcasts. Rate and review us there. 5 stars, please.
And thank you. Now, thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.